Coming up next on This Week in Computer Hardware, Microsoft Surface goes pro, SSD deals, Atom's not dead, what's AHCI, the new Raspberry Model A, and more. It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 204, recorded February 7th, 2013. Microsoft Surface pros and cons. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm your host, Patrick Norton, joined as always by Mr. Ryan Shrout to PCPer.com. Ryan, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. We had unusually warm weather today. It reached almost 60 degrees, considering like 3 days ago it was in the single digits. It was pretty good. Pretty good. Had the windows open at the office, which is a plus.
And probably the first fresh air you've had in the office in a month, which is an even bigger plus.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, we try to bring you the most important, the most engaging, the most useful news about computer hardware, the tablets. Look, Mac, PC, we're good. Android, love it. Tablets, fine. Phones, we're not too much into that scene. But eventually when phones take over computing and it's the only way we can actually play video games, we'll cover a lot more phones.
All right, fair enough.
It is what it is, man. It's been an interesting week. The Surface Pro was released. And as the strangest thing just happened. Remember when everybody told you how Apple devices never fail? They lied.
Oh, no.
No, it's okay. It's back now. It was the world's strangest timeout. But the Surface Pro reviews came out. I thought it was interesting to take a look at, first up, a review from Anand over at Anand Tech. And I'm going to skip to the summaries. There's a lot of really good information in both of these articles. You know, battery life, I think, for the Surface Pro, if you're not familiar with it, essentially is the high-powered tablet from Microsoft with a detachable keyboard. It's not the RT version, which means it actually uses a real version of Windows 8. You're not restricted to the ARM-compatible processor or the ARM-compatible applications available from the store. Quote, Surface Pro, says Anand, is about as well executed as Microsoft could have made it given the currently available hardware. Its performance is outstanding for a tablet. It's truly in a class of its own. So one of the things that Anand points out is that Apple does a lot of stuff with OS X, or I should say iOS more accurately, on the tablet that makes the much slower processor inside the iPad function or feel almost as fast as the CPU inside the Surface Pro. But Anand really liked the ability to use it as a tablet and have a detachable keyboard. On the other hand, Walt Mossberg over at All Things D, Surface Pro hefty tablet is a laptop lightweight. Mr. Mossberg was not so enthusiastic, using words. Basically, felt it was too expensive, too bulky compared to other tablets. But, quote, I should say, quote, but like many products that try to be two things at once, the new Surface Windows 8 Pro does neither as well as those designed for one function. So, you know, and it's interesting, Mr. Mossberg's kind of approach was that it's not a great notebook, and it's like too fat for a tablet, too slow for a notebook. So
I mean, yeah, there's validity to that argument, I guess, if you want to nitpick at things. And maybe it's not really nitpicking. Maybe that's true.
Well, you should point out, the Surface Pro is starting at $899, right? The keyboard cover, which is kind of the big attraction, that sort of detachable keyboard cover. It's a cover. It's a keyboard. You can snap it off. You can leave it on. It's a notebook. If you have the cover, is another $130. 64 gigabyte iPad is $699. A Surface Pro with 128's, like, I think is $1,000 versus an iPad. It's interesting to take a look at the approach, because I will say, everybody says it's solidly built. Everybody says it feels good in the hand. I think everybody feels it's kind of expensive. They like the fact that it has a higher resolution. It's considerably faster than the RT. But I'm really kind of curious how it's going to hold up, because when you start looking at the thickness of the Surface Pro, it does, it's kind of like a notebook. It's a little chunky for a tablet. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it fares in the marketplace if people buy it.
Yeah, I haven't got my hands on one yet. I really want to. I want to see how it compares to my time using the Surface RT, using the VivoTab RT, using things like the Lenovo ThinkPad. But the idea of having a full Ivy Bridge processor and platform in a tablet is really compelling to me, having seen some of the limitations on performance when you get into platforms using Atom-based stuff, using ARM-based stuff, stuff like that. So it's I will reserve my judgment, but I trust Anantech almost completely, right? And so he seems to like it. There's a lot of caveats along with it, and that Microsoft needs some more iterations to kind of really perfect this type of thing. And I tend to believe him. It's good performance on a tablet. Battery life needs to be stretched out, and we should be good.
More batteries. So Lenovo ThinkPad Tablet 2, you guys put a preview up on PCPro.com. How's it? I mean, how's it faring? This is one of the Z2760 Atom-based tablets, so it should be faster than an ARM, but slower than an Ivy Bridge? ?
Yeah, it's closer. It's much closer to an ARM system than it is an Ivy Bridge system. But so I mean, it's a pretty nice device. It's really thin. It weighs 1.3 pounds. It's supposed to have battery life up to 10 hours, but I would say that that's probably not going to actually happen. But it is Atom Z2760 based, and it's got a full-size USB port. It's got HDMI out. They sell accessories like this enterprise dock, they call it, that has Ethernet and USB and HDMI on the back of it and that kind of stuff. So you could, in theory, use this as your main machine, plug it in when you get to your office. You'd have your full-size keyboard, mouse, Ethernet cable, external storage. You unplug it when you leave, and you take it with you just in kind of this tablet form. There's, I've had the Asus VivoTab and the Surface RT for a while, but there's something inherently better in my mind about being able to run x86 software that you can't do on a Surface RT. This is closer to a Surface RT in terms of design, in terms of usability, in terms of battery life, and that kind of deal. But being able to, for my usage, it was like, okay, I want to test performance on it. Well, I have a whole conglomerate of x86-based benchmarks we can use and kind of see where things go. I can test VLC playback. I can test a bunch of things that I'm used to doing that you can't necessarily do on an RT device or on a on an ARM-based ARM architecture system. So it's a little bit expensive as well. This configuration, it's 64 gigs of onboard storage. It's a 10-inch 1366 by 768 IPS display. It's a nice display, but it's still an IPS display. It's $739, I guess. Is what the going price is, and then you get into accessories like they have this. This is the Bluetooth keyboard and touchpad Surface dock. So it has this little part that comes out, and then as I flip this around,
for those of you who have believed, and I just love the fact that it's got the pointing stick in the middle. There's a word that all of the engineers used to use to describe that I will not use, lest it turn out I violated the
G-ratedness of the show. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
We posted a preview on it. I don't know if Burke brought it up. We did like a little video preview, walkthrough, that kind of stuff. Shows you the accessories, show you a little bit of how it operates. I'm going to try to use it as the device you take with you. Like that keyboard dock I showed you, it's you can't adjust the angle, kind of like the Surface. You can't adjust the angle of the kickstand. You can't adjust the angle of this stand. And it was frustrating a couple of times. I was trying to use it like on a long car ride down to Lexington, and using the keyboard wasn't really an option because the way I had to have my legs and all this kind of stuff, you couldn't quite get the screen at an angle that was really comfortable for you to watch and use and that kind of stuff.
But Ryan, people only use keyboard, notebook, laptop devices on airplanes, on trays.
Yeah, see, that's not the case, as it turns out.
No pun
And that's one of
intended.
the reasons, like the Asus VivoTab RT, it kind of has like a normal hinge. It's a convertible, but it has a hinge design to it too. But I'm very impressed with the thin and lightness of it. It has a digitizer pen, so if you're better at drawing than me, you can do that. It comes with an app, so you can like take a screenshot of whatever you're looking at, write notes on it, and share it instantly, and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of handy. But I mean, it's as light as an iPad, maybe a little bit lighter than the one I've got sitting here next to me. So I'm looking forward to spending a couple of weeks with it and see what the overall kind of feel will be. It's Clover Trail. It's the first Clover Trail device I have.
What's the pricing like?
$739.
Whoa.
$739, and performance is okay. It's a dual-core hyper-threaded Atom. It's got 2 gigs of memory. The 64 gigs of storage is kind of interesting because it's not an SSD. It's actually an eMMC, so it's an embedded memory card, which may or may not cause problems. We're looking at something along the line of 60 to 70 megabytes per second read speeds maximum on that, just by running a quick benchmark that we had on there. So that may be a limitation for some high-end, very fringe use cases of a tablet like this, but I don't think it'll be a problem for them for the most part.
If the Atom is fast enough, I'm sure the eMMC will be fast enough.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to hold it back.
We've been saying it for a long time. SSDs are the killer upgrade. If you're still using rotating hard drive in your PC or your laptop, your desktop, your laptop, an SSD is the fastest way to really make it faster. Opening files, opening applications, startups, restart. It's kind of amazing how much faster a lot of very simple things happen when you go from rotating media to a solid state drive. And it's been interesting. We've been watching the prices drop, and it was fun watching this week a whole bunch of deals coming out. The OCZ Vector SSDs, which are pretty much the fastest drives out there right now. Alan Avantano loves them. It's like he's basically like, if you don't want to go with the sort of security blanket of Intel, and you don't want to go, the 840s. He loves the 840s and the 830s from Samsung. If you want all the speed, if you has all the speed, a Vector OCZ braces suck, people. Avoid them if you can. But they're much better than having your jaw broken and wired into place for 3 months. The OCZ Vector astonished me with its throughput, sheer IOPS performance, and low latency. And now, if you buy an OCZ Vector SSD, you will get a free Far Cry 3 download with new and existing purchases of the 256 gigabyte and 512 gigabyte SSD. So
it's kind of an interesting little pack-in, right? You're only used to seeing those with like video cards. Who was it last year? I think it was Samsung that did it just the end of last year with Assassin's Creed 3, and now you're seeing it with OCZ and Far Cry 3. I mean, it's one of those things that if you're going to buy an SSD anyway,
right,
go for it, right? You had a link in here to the Samsung 840s, which is
Ryan, we got to pause. Wait, I got to call you right back. Your audio just went gang gang. So hold on. Let's pause right there and final comments on this article.
All right.
Is SSD worth it on SATA 2? Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, it sounds like the radios from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, it sounds like the modulation on ham radios when they're jumping the frequencies.
Exactly. Web 9213.
That's where they got, yeah.
I will say we've run into people who have had every single brand of SSD they've tried fail on them. This is why we always remind you to back your data up. Backing your data up is critical and important. But yeah, it's
all better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's give video a second here to catch up.
All right. Where should I restart at?
We're used to seeing this on.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good place.
Hold on, and I'm gonna pull up the still here. The edit still. The Tony.
That was awesome. You had your deer in the headlights face on, Ryan.
Watching that video.
Tony, can you hear us? Da, 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 da.
All right,
go ahead.
Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, So this usually happens with like graphics cards for add-ins like this, for pack-ins and free games. But we've actually seen it on 2 SSDs now. This Far Cry 3 with the OCZ Vector, and I think late last year we saw Samsung. I think it was with the 830s, maybe it was with the new 840s for Assassin's Creed 3. So it's one of those things. If you're going to buy an SSD anyway, and you can get a free game out of it, maybe you're lowering the price by 30 or 40 or 50 bucks in your mind, right? And because Alan considers the Vector and the Samsung 840s to be his 2 favorite SSDs currently available, the fact that you can get a free game and get 50 bucks off essentially of the Vector maybe makes it the best in your mind.
Victor. Yeah, and you pointed out the OCZ Vector, 256 gigabytes sells $250 on Amazon.com. 150 for the 128 gigabytes, or $539.99 for the 512 gigabytes, which, given what the top of the line was a year ago, is pretty impressive. It's been really interesting this week. Some friends of mine were forwarding around SSD deals. Some of them are really amazing. Gizmodo had a great one. Our favorite SSD is your no-brainer upgrade deal of the day. It was a 250 gigabyte Samsung 840 for $150 shipped, so about $30 off.
Wow.
And then Newegg actually had it for, I think, a $30 off deal. And it's been really fun. Like, it's Tiger Direct. There it is. Tiger Direct have a Samsung 840, 120 gigabyte for $110. And then they had a $30 off on that. So it was $79.99. So it's interesting to watch. There's, Tiger, Newegg, they've been popping out some really fantastic deals on SSDs. So if you're the kind of person who likes to buy things and get the best deal on them, the 840s seem to be kind of the sweet spot for online retailers giving discounts, and they've been some pretty sweet discounts. You're talking about, I think Gizmodo figured out the math on the there it is. The 250 gigabyte model for 150 ship is 0.60, basically 60 cents a gigabyte.
Pretty nice.
That's pretty cheap. And, the 840, the vanilla is not the Pro. The Pro is faster, but believe me, 99.99% of the people that are listening to the podcast right now will not be able to feel the difference between those 2 hard drives or those 2 SSDs in their normal daily use. So
yeah,
it's exciting. SSDs are getting cheap. It's so exciting. I get excited about stuff like that, which kind of brings us to our next story. Hard drives are in decline. Does this sound ridiculous? iSupply estimates the hard drive industry will experience a 12% decline in 2013. Tim Very wrote this up for PCPer.com. Analytics firm IHS recently released its iSupply storage space market brief. According to the report, 2013 does not look good for hard drive manufacturers, who may see up to a 12% decline in revenues. In 2012, the hard drive industry brought in $37.1 billion. They're guesstimating $32.7 billion this year, and then down to a mere $32 billion in 2014. Mostly, that seems to be under pressure from SSDs. So
I think there's a lot of that, and have you had the desire to upgrade your hard drive capacities in a long time?
I have a stack of 1 terabyte hard drives left over from when I upgraded my NAS to 3 terabyte drives.
Yeah.
So I have 12 gigabytes of storage on tap, and unless I buy another 50 or 60 Blu-rays and do some other stuff really quickly, it's going to be really hard for me to justify going to 4 terabyte drives. Or, well, I guess I could just... Go ahead.
I kind of feel that's part of it as well. I think SSDs creeping in is definitely a big reason why you'll see this. But I just, we were when Alan was talking last night, he just upgraded his array, and he has tons of crap all the time. But he bought 2 terabyte drives instead of 3 terabyte drives because he's like, I think that's enough for right now. We haven't seen the next big consumer of storage, right? Blu-ray video, like high bitrate video is kind of it. So
unless you're creating 3D videos at home, 1080p 3D videos.
Right. Once we get to 4K video, maybe we'll have another reason for it.
Well, the other thing the article points out is that mobile devices, tablets, and smartphones are kind of cannibalizing PC and laptop sales. So it's an interesting thought about whether or not sort of we're in the decline of the desktop and laptop market. It's all over, man. Just buy a tablet, go to single mode, give up having more than one app on your screen.
No thanks.
Does Dell going private So, in case you have not paid attention to technology news this week, Michael Dell leading basically a large group of investors, which includes Microsoft to the tune of $2 billion. It's a $24.4 billion deal. And basically, they're taking Dell private. They're tired of the scrutiny. It's really, we don't really touch on. We're not a business show. We're a tech show. We're a hardware show. But one of the things you run into when you're running a large company that is publicly traded, whether it's on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange or any of the other exchanges, is that analysts, they want 90-day. They want quarterly results. They want to see your numbers going up. They want you to think short-term because they want their money in 3 months, 90 days, maybe 90 days. And it's hard to do a lot of smart and intelligent building of a business when you're trying to make a bunch of people who don't care about your business. They just care about your immediate 90-day profits happy. So Michael Dell's like, screw it. I'm going to throw a bunch of my money. Microsoft will throw some of their money. We got some other people throwing some money in, and they're basically buying all of the shares of stock and making Dell a private company again. Will this even remotely impact anybody buying Dell PCs or monitors?
No, I don't. I can't imagine that you would not buy a Dell laptop or a Dell PC because of this. If anything, I think it makes me more interested in their products in the next year or so, right? Because it allows them to maybe have the flexibility to innovate and try some different things without people breathing down their neck. Right. I think it's an incredibly gutsy move to do, to return to private. I'm curious about Microsoft's investment and what that will mean for Dell and for Microsoft and for things like the Surface or whatever. Maybe they just found themselves a new manufacturing partner or something like that. I think there's a lot of interesting things that come out of it. And I don't think that these people would be investing in Dell if the PC business were dead in 2 years, right? I think there's a lot of dumb financial people out there, but there's a lot of smart financial people out there as well. And I tend to believe that they're not all going to fall for some trick of Michael Dell's.
One of the things that people point out that Dell is essentially going to follow IBM into the world of, we're going to go for, big computing, big scale, large infrastructure. We're an IT company now. Yeah, it's like we're an IT company now, not a hardware company. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch. And I got to say, I'm right with you on that. It's a gutsy move by Michael Dell to be like, okay, if we're going to do what we want to do, we need to be able to do it without having a bunch of people threatening class action lawsuits because we're trying to make smart decisions that'll benefit the company over a 10-year span rather than over a 90-day span. So it's exciting. You know what else is exciting? Bespoke.com. It's I don't even know how to describe it. We've been talking about it. It's a product subscription service for men, which sounds really boring.
Except it does, yeah. Well,
you get a box every month. Bespoke Post. They send you an exclusive package. You have to be a member. You have to subscribe to get it with products. We got a summer box, actually, which is pretty fascinating, which was like this amazing linen blanket and a set of sunglasses and a set of dominoes, a really nice set of dominoes, actually. And it's really fun to see. They just did one, and, I've seen the shoes on some of the people in the audience. I know that Ryan and I'm wearing a pair of hiking boots. Ryan, are you wearing a pair of sneakers?
Yes.
Do you own a proper pair of leather shoes?
I do, absolutely. I tend to save them for my more formal gatherings. I'm wearing a T-shirt and a hoodie today, so I didn't really feel the need to break them out. But yeah, we got the polished kit in, which includes things like
the shoe
polishing
shine box.
Creams. Yeah, and the box itself is cool because at least the ones I've been getting have been coming in old cigar boxes and stuff as well. And it's pretty cool. I grew up, my dad wore suits, my grandfather wore suits. They both came out of the military. I learned how to shine shoes at like 5 years of age. And it was really neat to have this particular box show up because it had fancy, super fancy. Basically, it had creams, it had polishes, it had a full set of brushes, it had instructions. And it's the idea, what they do is they take a particular area and they find what they think is the best products in that area and they chuck them in a box. And is it better than the Penguin shoe polish at the supermarket? I don't know, but the brushes are really nice. And what's the last time you actually saw a proper set of brushes to polish your shoes with? It was... I may have never.
Well...
The box I got before was a whole all new shaving kit, right? It was like a badger hairbrush, creams, oil, soother, all that kind of stuff. And now, kind of the point. We tried this. I got to use it for a couple of months, and then like now I buy that on a regular basis. That's like my new shaving pattern and habits that I'm in. So I mean, it's really cool. And what I like about it is that for somebody who's maybe in the younger generation like myself, who's never been introduced to a lot of these different cultural things, these kind of staples of being a guy, it's cool to have somebody else kind of pick out some stuff. You're comfortable with what they've selected. It's going to work together. They give you directions. They send it out to you, and you just get it and you try it, and you like it or you don't, right? And you're not making this big commitment to it, and it's relatively inexpensive. You know, they say they have a team of experts that scour the world, and they are actually doing that, and then they send you one every month. They give you a little bit of heads up beforehand on what it's going to be. So if you know for sure it's something you're not interested in trying, you can maybe cancel that one and apply it to the next month or something like that. But it's a really cool service. And if, you know, for yourself or for a gift for somebody who is impossible to buy for, this basically puts the work of selecting products to purchase on somebody else, which I'm a big fan of. Right? You say, okay, here, it's like Fruit of the Month Club, but kind of more grown up and professional, right?
Well, it's sophisticated. There's style here. There's sophistication. There's a little bit of exclusivity here. It's neat. Look, it's 1 month gift is $50. 3 months is $135. A half year is $270. Essentially, it's $45. Free shipping, easy returns. Bespoke's deal is, look, the contents in the box are worth more than you're paying for it. And it's pretty cool. If you want to check it out, visit Bespoke Post at bespokepost.com/twit. Do us a favor, use bespokepost.com/twit so that they know we sent you. And it's pretty exciting. I gotta say,
if you sign up, you do get 20% off of your first month subscription as well at that URL, which helps too.
That's a good thing. I'm actually looking forward to, you know, breaking out my fancy dress shoes and teaching my son how to polish shoes, which he'll probably look at me with just as confused as I was when I learned how to polish shoes when I was 5. But it's a good lesson. And my shoes will be shiny again for the first time. My dad would be upset if he saw what my shoes looked like a couple weeks ago. I love home theater PCs. Windows Media Center, even though it's an option in Windows 8, which kind of is irritating. Arctic has a really, really cool box. It is not Windows Media Center. It's the MC001 XBMC. XBMC, of course, XBMC 12, the Xbox Media Center 12, a.k.a. Frodo. I thought this was actually really cool. It's like 161 by 40 by 266 millimeters, which is small. There's a stand, so you can stand it up vertically like a book. Comes in black, comes in white. The idea is that it's going to hide inside your AV rack, and it's pretty cool. You can basically use it as a NAS. You can use it to play back video and audio. XBMC 12 Frodo is preloaded with OpenELEC 3.0, and it was interesting. It's an Atom processor. I didn't realize. I always thought OpenELEC was ARM or Raspberry Pi specific, but apparently there's an Atom version of it also. So it's an Atom D525 processor. It's been really fun. We've been playing around on TechZilla with the new Raspberry Pi and setting it up with RaspBMC, which is neat. So you've got, for $35, you've got this full-featured, and part of what's really cool is Frodo now supports DTS HD and Dolby HD, sort of the full high-definition audio. It can play back your Blu-ray rips. It'll play back, you know, YouTube videos. It'll play back Twit. It'll play back Revision 3. It's really cool, but it's essentially, it's like you know, dual-core Atom D525 processor, ATI mobility, Radeon HD 5430 with 512 megabytes of GDDR3 memory, 2 gigs of 1333 megahertz system memory, a 1 terabyte laptop hard drive, you know, gigabit Ethernet, 802.11 BGN, you know, full set of six audio jacks, SPDIF, VGA, HDMI, 5 USB jacks, USB 2.0 jacks. It's pretty cool. I was actually really excited to see that. $229, a lot more expensive than a Raspberry Pi, but unlike a Raspberry Pi, you're not going to have to plug like multiple USB hubs to get everything you want attached to it, which I thought was a big plus. Yeah. So I was excited. I love a good home theater PC option.
Now, you mentioned the Raspberry Pi, and you saw this one, which is a new $25 model with 256 megs of RAM. Which one are you using that you're kind of playing around with?
Well, the Raspberry Pi Model B is the one they released first, which is $35. The Raspberry Model A Cost $10 more. Essentially, the Raspberry Model A is a Raspberry Model B, except that you have half the RAM and a single USB port.
Okay.
Which means, unless you set it up as a NAS or something, you're really going to need a USB hub to attach stuff to it. So there's no, I want to say there's no Ethernet jack on the Model A. No, that can't be right.
I don't see one.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
I don't see one in the pictures, but
no Ethernet jack, yeah.
Okay.
So it's excited. But yeah, RS Components and Premier, Farnell, Element 14 have Model A Raspberry Pis in stock as of this morning. And let me see. Yeah, no Ethernet, one USB port, 256 megabytes of RAM. So it's basically half the RAM, none of the Ethernet, and half of the USB ports. And okay, I'm going to click on Element 14, which is the U.S. purveyor of Raspberry Pis. And let's see. Can I order a Raspberry Pi Model 8? I
still don't have one. I just
You haven't bought one?
No, I don't know what I would do with it yet. I don't have any of this. I don't have any free time yet to kind of play around and experiment with this stuff.
You're too busy building benchmarks.
Yeah, I am.
It's not a bad thing. The Raspberry Pi Model B is in stock. Where's the Model A?
And where's that at? What's that retailer again?
That would be Element 14. Well, let me see. It should be Element 14 in the U.S. Let me...
All right. I'll check around. I'll order one so I have it here. So then I have less excuse.
That late night when you're bored, you can start hacking your Raspberry Pi. Forget about all these $2,000 GPUs and $5,000 gaming PCs. I'm rolling Raspberry Pi with Linux.
Yep.
I ain't buying that. Hold on. Here we go. Newark.com is the U.S. Element 14. Zero. There are zero
I see that.
Model Bs in stock.
Availability zero. Damn.
I hate that.
Minimum order quantity of one, so I guess I won't place that order. All right. Worth a shot.
Foiled again. So much for my weak and not particularly coordinated efforts to get you into low-end computing.
Your attempt to get me to spend $35 live on the show failed again.
Oh, my goodness. New 3D Mark is here. Are you excited or do you care anymore about the 3D Mark 3D benchmarks? Are you over the 3D Mark 3D benchmarks? Are they as dead to you as low-cost ARM-based PCs?
No. They're not. So you've got to go into it with the right mindset. This is not replacing games.
Right.
It is not the only test you should run on a system to see what kind of gaming performance you have. Right. What's interesting what they did with this 3D Mark version is there's 3 separate tests. They have Firestrike, which is meant for enthusiast PCs. It even has an extreme mode that runs at 2560 by 1440. The combined test ran at like 11 or 12 frames per second on our GTX 680 SLI. So it's definitely pushing a bunch of stuff at your system. You go down one step and you're at CloudGate, and that's a test kind of targeted at DX10 level hardware, and it will run on integrated graphics. It will run on, your Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge part, the Llano parts, the Trinity parts. It's kind of useful for comparing that level of component. And then the newest, more interesting one is Ice Storm, and it's meant to run on everything from like this Atom tablet. It'll run on this. It'll run on Windows RT devices, and it'll run on Android, and it'll run on iOS. Now, what's interesting is on Android and iOS, it's using OpenGL, not DirectX, but they are telling everybody that they've basically feature matched as close as possible within the 2 specifications so that you can compare results from x86 to Android. You can compare across Windows, Windows RT, Android, and iOS and get some kind of comparable metric in terms of graphical performance and CPU performance using their tests, which is really pretty interesting. And that version's not out yet. That the version that runs on Android and iOS will be out in a couple of weeks. But I ran that test on the GTX 680 SLI rig, and it got like 1,500 frames per second or something like that. Like, it was actually pegging the CPU. The GPUs had plenty of headroom left and that kind of stuff. It's still a free benchmark for you to download, and it's good to have applications that a user can download and run on their system and know that it's going to be directly comparable to what we publish in reviews, what other websites publish in reviews, so they can see if they're getting the performance that they're supposed to be getting, right? So yeah, the video that we're showing there now is the Ice Storm. That's the most basic level. That's DX level. They're all built in DirectX 11, but they are now on feature level 9, so it supports DirectX 9 features. The Firestrike one on DX11 is more impressive looking, obviously, but can't run on things like our tablet 2 or on an iPad or anything like that. So it's useful. It's still useful to have, but don't make it your only point of data, your only data point, and you can do some interesting things with it as well. So worth checking out for free.
Checking it out for free is good. I wanted to get you started on the whole sort of artificial, and artificial is not bad. It's not like food.
Right. So you go synthetic versus real world.
Right.
Synthetic can do interesting things that real world tests won't do. Like synthetics will push the edges of graphical performance and feature performance that a game engine won't necessarily do, because they have to make sure the game runs on a wide array of hardware. That's why, like in Firestrike, there's 2 graphics tests. One that kind of pushes 2 specific aspects like global illumination and something else, and another test that tests completely different aspects. You would never do that in a real game engine, because you don't want to have a bottleneck on 2 different sides. But when you're making a synthetic benchmark, you have the flexibility to push specific aspects and then recombine those into a score, because you're not really care about the playability of what you actually wrote. So you get interesting data from it, but it's not enough to solely make your decision on, for sure.
Twitch, TWICH at twit.tv is the email address. We invite, we love, we adore, we need, we plead. We would like your hardware questions. We'll do our best to answer them on the show. John has a question about IDE mode. He says, I've been meaning to ask, when using SATA connectors, is there a performance difference between IDE and AHCI in the BIOS? I know IDE mode is good for older operating systems if you don't want to install drivers. XP! To get your SATA drive to show up during installation. Hope you guys can let me know. Thanks, and keep up the awesomeness.
Yes, there's a difference. AHCI, if you don't have AHCI enabled, you don't get the benefits of NCQ, native command queuing, which is a big performance improver for SSDs and traditional hard drives. Right. So yes, you should definitely be using AHCI or RAID mode. RAID mode also enables AHCI when you do that. IDE mode
is old school.
It is. It's if you're having some issue that you can't figure out, maybe you tried an IDE mode. But if you install Windows on IDE mode, it is not a trivial task to switch to AHCI after the fact. Yeah. So you want to install with AHCI enabled, if at all possible.
It's funny that this came up, because we've had a whole bunch of questions in the last 2 weeks. Partially, we had a viewer who's like, on TechZilla, you guys always talk about the BIOS, but you never mention UEFI, or the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. And I'm like, well, part of me was like, well, because after calling a BIOS for 25 years, it's hard to call it a UEFI or a UEFI.
That's even harder to say. UEFI.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick to UEFI, but essentially UEFI is the modern replacement for the BIOS. If you're building a Hackintosh, you need it. All OS 10 systems need it. Windows 8 wants it, but essentially it's something in between. Sort of there's physical hardware of your motherboard. There's the firmware that makes the hardware do things that you actually want it to do, like run an operating system and play video games. EFI sits in between the firmware and the operating system, and part of what's going on there is it's in part designed to help secure the operating system. But it's really interesting. It also allows you to do things like do overclocking with a graphical user interface in the UEFI, or formerly known as the BIOS. That sort of operating system state that you can kind of, when you go into setup mode, now you can actually look at live statistics and actually manipulate some of them in ways you couldn't really do in a BIOS. There's legacy support for the BIOS services and stuff, but it's really interesting to kind of look at what's going on with the UEFI. I'm not even going to try to say UEFI again. It's interesting, but Itanium x86, 64, and ARM, and it's interesting. I for one welcome the exciting new performance possibilities. So is the comment from Lord Drakenblut, and I gotta say Drakenblut, my German fails me. The comment from Lord Drakenblut. It says, I've recently been on a binge of listening to your Twitch. One thing I've noticed is a disdain for the Atom processor and always talking about using i3 processors for a media center PC. I want to mention that I run a Zotac Z-Box with an Atom processor with 1 gigabyte of RAM and a very cheap 16 gigabyte SSD drive in it. The system has an NVIDIA GPU, and through the power of XBMC running on Linux and leveraging VDPAL, I have a rather quiet media center PC that is capable of playing back 1080p video without a hiccup across a network. Cool. It's funny. So this is just my 2 cents on Atom processors and media center PCs. And it was really funny because I actually have run into some people who were like, I'm running Windows 8 and I'm really enjoying it on an old netbook. I'm actually running Ubuntu on I want to say a Lenovo C300, which was sort of an all-in-one computer with an Atom processor with a whopping 2 gigabytes of RAM. And it actually is pretty snappy. It's been fun playing around between that and XP, and I'm playing around with that XP and Windows 8. But yeah, I will be honest with you. Given the choice, I will take a Core i3 or a Core i5 in a heartbeat over an Atom processor. But if you want to, use the Atom CPU to build some kind of a NAS, to build a box to play around with, a Linux experimenting box, a media server, a media center, as long as you're not trying to do video transcoding without one of the there were some media accelerators available for some of the early Atoms, but the availability was kind of on and off. But it'll do fine as a media server as long as you don't have to do any video transcoding on the fly.
So Atoms are tuned for very specific use cases, and they perform well in those. Like, for example, this Lenovo tablet is powered by an Atom processor. It's the new 2760. It's a little bit different than the Atom that he's talking about, and it can play back 1080p video at 10% CPU utilization, right? So it can play back a 1080p YouTube clip, no sweat. But I happen to find it was one of those Future Mark 3D Mark videos that if now people are uploading higher res than 1080p, you can sometimes play back the original, right?
Well,
so this original was 2560 by 1440. This didn't have a chance.
Right.
I went from 1080p where it was at 10% CPU utilization and said, let's try original and see what that does. And it pegged all the cores at 100%, and it was, 3 frames a second or something like that video playback. And that's because the graphics portion, it's a PowerVR graphics chip integrated in that SoC, and it's tuned for 1080p video. It's tuned for H.264 playback. And when you get outside of those bounds, the processor doesn't have the capability to make up for it. And that's why I tend to recommend a core-based product like an i3 or an i5 if you're going to do anything but those very, very specific usage cases.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, that's part of what's so amusing about when running RaspBMC or OpenELEC on the Raspberry Pi, which is essentially the XBMC. It's been set up for the Raspberry Pi. It's been really funny to look at playing back 1080p video, and with the basic interface and flicking around, it's like 30% CPU consumption, just like going between photos, video, music, and then you launch a video and everything gets offloaded to the media accelerator, and the CPU use drops to 10%. So it's
when you can tune the software specifically to the hardware, you can do a lot of interesting things. And the capability that you get from a higher end processor is you don't have to be stuck in those specific buckets of software, I guess.
It's a good thing. Well, Twitch, TWICH at twit.tv. That is the email address if you want to send us an email. If this is your first time listening to the Twitch podcast, welcome to This Week in Computer Hardware. Please, immediately upon finishing this podcast, go check out our sponsor and subscribe to bespoke.com/twit. And then, I'm kidding people, go straight to twit.tv/twitch. That's where you can find basically all the older shows, all of the links to download the show, to subscribe to the show, to automatically subscribe to it and check it out. 156 episodes, people, and today I believe is 157. No, 204. That's an old grab. We're up to episode 204. Ryan, we're old. Well,
yeah, I was looking around like I had forgotten about 50. Like, did I dream those other 50 episodes? Oh man, I need to go see that doctor.
Yeah, we just hit episode 400 on TechZilla. I've been playing around getting the Raspberry Pi to work as an AirPlay device.
Yeah.
I believe I had a profoundly bad router issue. So once that's repaired, we'll be showing off the Raspberry Pi running the new XBMC Frodo on Monday. And it's exciting. We just had a new SimCity preview, which is gorgeous. Have you seen the new SimCity?
Yes, I am eager for it to be released.
He waits with bated breath.
I totally spaced, and I didn't do the. They did that 1 hour beta that you could play, and I got into that beta, but I was gone all weekend and didn't get a chance to come in and play around with it, so I missed out. So I'll be waiting. I think it comes out next month, so not that much longer.
Very, very soon. Also, very, very soon, updates on the PlayStation 4. And what it will evolve, what the PlayStation platform is going to evolve into. I myself am anticipating multiple handheld paddles along with a head-mounted display that straps to your chest. I may be mocking a certain other console manufacturer right now.
I'm going to go with they actually don't announce any hardware specifications for new PlayStation.
That would be harsh.
I think maybe they talk about the software and the social integration.
What about the security, the new security? Sorry, did I say that out loud again?
Yeah. Better passwords.
What's coming up on PC Per this week?
This week we're gonna have this ThinkPad 2 tablet. We'll do a more detailed analysis of that, performance, battery life, all that kind of stuff. And then we also have a ZBox Nano that we're going to talk about that has an AMD APU that didn't quite live up to the performance expectations that we were looking at there. And then graphics card stuff coming up, not this week, but relatively soon as well. So you weren't off the mark when you were talking about building new benchmarks for graphics cards. We're rebuilding all of that stuff. And it's one of the least exciting times for readers, because this is where I spend 3 weeks not telling anybody what I'm doing as I try to figure out what games we're going to use, what resolutions we test out, what methods we're compiling for all this numbers. And then eventually one day in the future, it all explodes out onto an article. So,
and you change the world and GPU testing as we know it.
Well, let's hope.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Twitch This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm your host, Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
Hope to see you here next week on Twitch.